Witches have haunted human imagination for centuries, but the truth behind the legends is far darker than fairy tales suggest. These were real people, often women, accused of forbidden knowledge, dark rituals, and dealings with forces beyond comprehension. Their lives were marked by fear, persecution, and sometimes brutal death, leaving behind chilling stories that shaped history. From secret gatherings and shocking trials to whispered legends of curses and witchcraft, these accounts reveal a terrifying reality hidden behind myths. In this video, we uncover the true stories of witches whose lives and legacies are far more frightening than fiction. Witches have long haunted human imagination. Popular culture often depicts them as women with broomsticks, pointed hats, or magical powers. But the reality of witches in history is far darker. Real witches were often ordinary people accused of extraordinary crimes, forbidden knowledge, secret rituals, or consorting with the devil. Their lives were shaped by fear, superstition, and social prejudice, often culminating in brutal persecution or execution. The stories of real witches are more than myths. They reflect the social, political, and religious anxieties of their times. Across centuries and continents, from medieval Ireland to colonial America, these women were accused, tortured, and sometimes executed for crimes they may never have committed. Their terrifying stories endure, blending tragedy, horror, and legend, offering a window into the darkest corners of human history. In this article, we explore the lives of witches whose stories have fascinated, horrified, and mystified generations, revealing the chilling realities behind the legends. Alice Kyteler, Ireland's first accused witch. Alice Kyteler, accused in 1324, is often considered Ireland's first recorded witch. She was a wealthy and independent woman from Kilkenny, married 4 times, each husband dying under mysterious circumstances. Her wealth and independence provoked suspicion and jealousy, making her a target for accusations of witchcraft. Bishop Richard de Ladrede accused Alice of heresy, sorcery, and consorting with demons. Allegations included animal sacrifices, black magic, and keeping a demon familiar in the form of a black cat. Despite her cunning and ability to flee, her maid Petronilla of Meath was tortured and burned at the stake. Alice's terrifying story reflects how fear of women's power and independence could be weaponized. In medieval Ireland, a successful woman could be accused of crimes that others imagined, with deadly consequences. Her story remains a chilling reminder that superstition and societal bias often determined life or death. Agnes Sampson, Scotland's healer turned witch. In 1590, Scotland was gripped by witchcraft hysteria, fueled in part by King James VI's obsession with the devil. Agnes Sampson, a respected healer and midwife, became one of the most notorious victims of the North Berwick witch trials. Accused of raising storms to sink the king's ship and leading gatherings of witches, Agnes endured horrific torture. She was shaved, pricked for the devil's mark, and bound until her body was nearly crushed. Under unbearable pain, she confessed to everything, including meeting with Satan. Agnes was executed in 1591. Her story illustrates how knowledge, herbalism, midwifery, or healing could be reframed as dangerous witchcraft. Agnes Sampson's terrifying experience shows the deadly intersection of fear, gender, and power in historical witch hunts. La Voisin, poison and court intrigue. Catherine Monvoisin, known as La Voisin, was central to the affair of the poisons in 17th century France. A fortune-teller and alleged sorceress, she served Parisian elites, providing love charms, poisons, and occult rituals. Rumors claimed she performed black masses, invoked demons, and even committed infant sacrifices. While historians debate the full extent of these claims, her reputation as a dangerous witch spread quickly. La Voisin was executed in 1680, But her story became legend, blending fact with myth. The affair of the poisons shows how fear of witches could intertwine with politics, ambition, and corruption. Lavoisin's terrifying legacy endures as a symbol of how superstition and social anxieties could transform individuals into figures of horror. Tituba, the enslaved witch of Salem. The Salem witch trials of 1692 epitomize hysteria fueled by fear, religion, and social tension. At the center was Tituba, an enslaved woman from Barbados. After local girls began exhibiting strange fits, Tituba was accused of practicing witchcraft. Under pressure, she confessed to pacts with the devil and encounters with other witches, describing visions of black cats and supernatural forces. Her testimony ignited mass panic, resulting in over 200 accusations and 20 executions. Tituba's story highlights the intersection of race, gender, and fear. As an enslaved woman, she was both vulnerable and a convenient scapegoat. Her confessions, coerced by authority and superstition, sparked one of history's most infamous episodes of witch hysteria. The Pendle Witches, England's darkest trial. In 1612, Lancashire's Pendle region became infamous for one of England's most notorious witch trials. 12 people from the Demdike and Chattox families were accused of witchcraft, blamed for curses, crop failures, and deaths. The most chilling aspect was betrayal within families. A 9-year-old girl, Janet Device, testified against her relatives, sealing their fates. 10 of the accused were hanged. The trial reveals how fear can destroy community bonds, turning neighbor against neighbor and child against parent. The Pendle Witches' terrifying stories endure in folklore, illustrating how superstition and social tension can lead to tragic consequences for the innocent. Mother Shipton, England's prophetess. Ursula Southill, known as Mother Shipton, born in 1488, became England's most famous prophetess. Legends claim she was born during a thunderstorm, with unusual features, and possessed insight into the future. She gained fame for predicting disasters, plagues, and even technological developments, including iron ships and flying machines. Though largely a figure of folklore, Mother Shipton was feared during her lifetime for her prophetic powers. Her terrifying legacy lies not in harmful acts, but in the fear she inspired. Knowledge of the future unsettled her community and challenged authority, showing how women with wisdom or unusual abilities could be branded as witches. Baba Yaga, folklore reflecting real fears. Baba Yaga, a figure from Slavic folklore, embodies historical fears of witches. Living in a hut on chicken legs, flying in a mortar, and wielding a pestle, she could be both dangerous and helpful. Folklorists suggest she may have been inspired by real women, herbalists, midwives, or outsiders, whose skills were respected yet feared. Baba Yaga's legend demonstrates how myth preserves societal anxieties and transforms real fears into enduring stories. She shows how folklore can memorialize the dangers faced by women perceived as different or powerful. Salem Witch Trials, mass hysteria in colonial America. The Salem trials illustrate how fear can escalate into collective hysteria. Religious extremism, personal grudges, and social stress created fertile ground for accusations. Spectral evidence, visions, dreams, and hallucinations was accepted in court, amplifying panic. Accusations spiraled, affecting neighbors, friends, and family. 20 people were executed, and one man, Giles Corey, was pressed to death under stones. Salem highlights the lethal consequences of fear unchecked by reason. Witches, real or imagined, became scapegoats for anxiety, injustice, and communal tension. Patterns in witchcraft persecution. Historical witchcraft cases reveal recurring patterns. Gender targeting. Most accused witches were women, particularly those who defied societal norms. Religious justification. Witchcraft was framed as heresy or rebellion against God. Social scapegoating. Witches were blamed for unexplained misfortune, illness, or death. Torture and coerced confessions. Brutality ensured confessions that reinforced fear. Legend outliving reality. Myths amplified accusations, creating terrifying figures long after deaths. These patterns reveal that fear often drove persecution more than reality. Social, political, and religious anxieties created conditions where ordinary people were transformed into terrifying legends. Why these stories endure. The stories of witches endure because they combine terror, tragedy, and myth. They reflect human anxieties about women, outsiders, and the unknown. They also warn of the dangers of superstition, hysteria, and unchecked authority. Modern reinterpretations of witches, through literature, film, and spirituality, transform them from feared figures into symbols of empowerment. Practices like Wicca reclaim the witch as a healer and protector rather than a criminal. Yet the historical reality of fear and persecution remains undeniable, reminding us of the deadly consequences of social panic. Lessons from history. Witch hunts reveal more than superstition. They reveal the fragility of reason when society is consumed by fear. They show how gender, social status, and religious conformity could determine life or death. They also illustrate the power of myths to shape collective memory, creating terrifying stories that outlast reality. From Alice Keitler to Tituba, from Agnes Sampson to the Pendle Witches, the lives of accused witches reflect injustice, hysteria, and human cruelty. At the same time, their stories reveal resilience, cunning, and the enduring power of memory, legend, and cautionary tale. Beyond myths and fairy tales, witches have long captured human imagination, often depicted in folklore and popular culture as women with broomsticks, pointed hats, and magical powers. These depictions, however, only scratch the surface. The reality of witches in history is far more complex, terrifying, and instructive. The true stories of witches go beyond fantasy. They are windows into fear, prejudice, and mechanisms of social control. Throughout history, accusations of witchcraft were rarely about magic alone. They reflected societal anxieties, the fear of independent women, distrust of outsiders, suspicion of those with knowledge of healing or herbs, and the overarching influence of religion and politics. Across Europe, the British Isles, and colonial America, countless women, and some men, were accused, tortured, and executed. Their stories reveal a society where hysteria, superstition, and systemic prejudice dictated life and death. The term, which became a catch-all for behaviors, beliefs, and individuals deemed threatening or abnormal. By examining these terrifying true stories, we uncover how myths were constructed and how the legacies of these persecutions continue to shape culture, literature, and society. Alice Keitler, Ireland's wealthy witch. Alice Keitler, accused in 1324 in Kilkenny, Ireland, stands as one of the earliest recorded figures in the history of witchcraft accusations. Alice was wealthy, independent, and socially influential, a combination that made her a target in a deeply patriarchal society. She had married 4 times, with each husband dying under mysterious circumstances. Bishop Richard de Ladrede accused her of heresy, sorcery, and consorting with the devil. Allegations included animal sacrifice, invoking demons, and using magical charms. Alice herself escaped punishment by fleeing, but her maid, Petronilla of Meath, was tortured and burned at the stake. Alice Keitler's story is terrifying not for magical deeds, but for what it reveals about social anxieties. Her independence, wealth, and defiance of societal norms turned her into a symbol of fear. Hysteria transformed a successful woman into a legendary witch, demonstrating how prejudice and superstition could dictate fate. Agnes Sampson, Scotland's persecuted healer. In 1590, Scotland's North Berwick, witch trials gripped the nation in fear. Agnes Sampson, a respected healer and midwife, was accused of raising storms to sink King James VI's ship and plotting his death through black magic. Sampson endured horrific torture, including being shaved, pricked for the devil's mark, and bound in ropes until nearly crushed. Under extreme duress, she confessed to gathering with witches, performing rituals, and meeting Satan. She was executed in 1591, her life extinguished by fear, politics, and superstition. Agnes's story illustrates a pattern in witchcraft persecution. Women with knowledge, independence, or authority could be recast as dangerous and subversive. Her terrifying experience underscores how fear became institutionalized, enabling social control through the persecution of women. La Voisin, witchcraft and intrigue at the French court. Catherine Monvoisin, better known as La Voisin, was central to the affair of the poisons in 17th century France. La Voisin was a fortune-teller, healer, and alleged sorceress who served the French aristocracy, providing love charms, poisons, and occult rituals. Rumors allege that she performed black masses, invoked demons, and even sacrificed infants. Her arrest and trial revealed a network of poisoning and occult practices implicating high-ranking members of Louis XIV's court. La Voisin was executed in 1680, yet her legend outlived her death, blending fact and myth into a terrifying story that captured the public imagination. La Voisin's life demonstrates how witches could become symbols of both moral panic and political intrigue. Fear of witchcraft intersected with ambition, corruption, and the desire for control, leaving a legacy that endured in European cultural memory. Tituba, the enslaved witch of Salem. The Salem witch trials of 1692 in colonial Massachusetts epitomized the deadly consequences of mass hysteria. At the center was Tituba, an enslaved woman from Barbados. When local girls began exhibiting strange fits and behaviors, she was accused of practicing witchcraft. Under intense pressure and threat of torture, Tituba confessed to conjuring spirits, making pacts with the devil, and attending gatherings of witches. Her confessions ignited a wave of panic that resulted in over 200 accusations and 20 executions. Tituba's story highlights the intersection of race, gender, and fear. As an enslaved woman, she was vulnerable and an easy scapegoat. Her coerced confessions illustrate how fear and social prejudice could manipulate legal and religious systems, leading to tragic outcomes. The Pendle Witches, community betrayal. In 1612, Lancashire's Pendle region became infamous for one of England's most notorious witch trials. 12 people, mostly women, were accused of witchcraft, blamed for curses, deaths, and crop failures. A chilling aspect of the trial was betrayal within families. A 9-year-old girl, Janet Device, testified against her own family, leading to 10 executions. The Pendle case demonstrates how fear can fracture communities, turning neighbors, relatives, and even children into agents of persecution. The Pendle Witches' terrifying stories endure in folklore and history, illustrating how superstition, poverty, and community tension could destroy lives and relationships. Mother Shipton, prophetess and public fear. Ursula Southeil, known as Mother Shipton, was born in 1488 in England and became famous for her prophecies. Legends claim she predicted plagues, disasters, and technological inventions, including iron ships and flying machines. Though largely a figure of folklore, she was feared during her lifetime. Her ability to predict the future unsettled communities and challenged authority, making her a target of suspicion. Mother Shipton's terrifying legacy lies in her power to inspire fear without performing any direct harm, showing how knowledge itself could be interpreted as witchcraft. Baba Yaga, folklore and historical fear. Baba Yaga, a Slavic folkloric figure, embodies society's historical fear of witches. Living in a hut on chicken legs, flying in a mortar, and wielding a pestle, she is both dangerous and wise, reflecting the duality often assigned to witches. Historians suggest Baba Yaga may have been inspired by real women, midwives, herbalists, or outsiders, whose knowledge and independence made them objects of fear. Her enduring legend demonstrates how folklore preserves societal anxieties, turning real fears into mythic narratives that have survived for centuries. Salem, mass hysteria and social collapse. The Salem witch trials exemplify how fear, religion, and social tension can spiral into hysteria. In Salem, Massachusetts, accusations began when a group of young girls displayed strange behaviors and fits. Spectral evidence, claims of visions, dreams, or possession, was accepted in court. Accusations escalated, ensnaring neighbors, friends, and family. 20 people were executed, and one man, Giles Corey, was pressed to death under heavy stones. Salem illustrates the deadly consequences of fear unchecked by reason, showing how accusations of witchcraft could serve as instruments of social control, scapegoating, and communal panic. Patterns in witch persecution. Across centuries, certain patterns emerge in historical witch persecutions. Gender and power. Women, particularly those who were independent, widowed, or wealthy, were disproportionately accused. Religious authority. Witchcraft was often framed as rebellion against God or heresy. Religious institutions legitimized persecution. Scapegoating and fear. Witches were blamed for misfortune, disease, or natural disasters, providing an outlet for communal anxieties. Torture and coerced confessions. Brutal methods ensured confessions that reinforced fear and legend. Myth outlasting reality. Over time, the stories of witches often became more legendary than factual, creating enduring figures of terror. These patterns reveal that fear, rather than reality, often drove persecution. Witch hunts were as much about social, political, and religious control as about supernatural belief. Cultural and historical legacy. The terrifying stories of witches have left a profound cultural legacy. In modern times, witches have been reinterpreted as symbols of empowerment, feminism, and spiritual wisdom. Practices such as Wicca and neo-paganism reclaim the figure of the witch as a healer, teacher, and protector rather than a villain. However, the historical reality cannot be forgotten. Tens of thousands of people, mostly women, were executed for witchcraft between the 15th and 18th centuries. Their stories remain a warning about the dangers of fear, prejudice, and mass hysteria. Legends of witches continue to influence literature, folklore, film, and popular imagination. They remind us of the human capacity for fear, the consequences of superstition, and the ways myths can be weaponized against the vulnerable. Lessons from witch hunts. Witch hunts teach us about the fragility of reason under pressure from fear and prejudice. They illustrate how gender, social status, and religious orthodoxy could determine life or death. They also reveal the power of narrative, how myths can amplify accusations, distort reality, and create terrifying cultural archetypes. From Alice Keitler to Tituba, from Agnes Sampson to the Pendle witches, the lives of accused witches reflect injustice, hysteria, and human cruelty. Yet their stories also reveal resilience, cunning, and the lasting power of memory. The witches of history serve as cautionary examples, showing how societies can destroy individuals in the name of morality, law, or fear. Terror, myth, and legacy. The terrifying true stories of witches are more than tales of magic. They are windows into fear, prejudice, and social control. Some accused witches may have practiced forbidden arts. Most were victims of hysteria, suspicion, and societal anxiety. These stories endure because they illuminate the darkest aspects of human society: fear of women, outsiders, and the unknown, the capacity for collective panic, and the ability of myths to become instruments of power. They also demonstrate the human tendency to weaponize superstition and to conflate difference with danger. Witches have become enduring cultural symbols, blending terror and fascination. Their stories teach lessons about injustice, resilience, and the human cost of fear. By examining terror, myth, and legacy, we gain insight into history and into ourselves. The witches of history were not merely figures of legend. They were real people whose lives were shaped and destroyed by fear. Their legacy reminds us that truth is often more terrifying than fiction, and that myths, once created, can wield power across centuries. The stories of these real witches remind us that history is often darker than fiction. They were accused, feared, and sometimes executed, not always for what they did, but for who they were and what society feared. Their lives reveal a world where superstition, power, and paranoia intertwined, leaving behind chilling legacies that still captivate us today. If these terrifying true stories fascinated you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into history's hidden horrors. Remember, the past is full of lessons, and sometimes truth is far stranger and darker than legend.